6:06. So I think we'll get started, and Bailey's here since we have our 3 board members, and I know another one is going to be joining us. So I'll call us to order at 6:06. And Liz, are you okay to take notes for me? Great. Okay, so just a couple of quick things. First off, we're not going to approve our minutes from February because this meeting was warned 40 hours, but not within 48 hours. And so because of that, we can't do that at this meeting, but we are going to take notes and review those at the next meeting. The other thing I wanted to note is that we had our board reorganization meeting last Tuesday, I believe it was. And at that time, we had board members determine which committees they wanted to be involved in moving forward. And so Liz and I are both on this committee as we were in the past. And then we have Bailey Lane Gordon, who's a board member from Moncton, who's here. And then we'll also be joined by Kristen Toy. Erin Jipner is going to be stepping off the committee, but I believe she's going to continue to do the work, some of the work, or hand over the work thus far on the ownership linkage plan that she'd been working on. I don't know if she's able to join us tonight, so we might not hear an update on that today. But she is going to transition it to another board member, and so that work will continue. It just might not happen until next month. So maybe since Bailey is new to us, we could all just do a quick intro, if that would be okay. So Elisa, do you mind starting? Just who you are and what town you live in and anything else you want to say?
Yeah, okay. I'm Elisa Cobb. I live in Bristol. I've been coming to this meeting for few months now. And I am a graduate of Mount Abe from long time ago, 1971. And looking forward to getting our school at a level where anti-racism is a practical everyday part of the learning experience at Mount Abe. And so that's why I'm here. And my daughter Jennifer is just coming in. She's a graduate of Mount Abe too. There she is. And nice to see you all again tonight.
Great, thank you. Hey, Jennifer, good to see you.
All right.
Good. We're just going around and introducing ourselves. We have a new board member joining us this term, and then and I don't know if she's had the chance to meet everybody here. So Deb, do you mind introducing yourself next?
Hi, I'm Deb Merriman. I've lived in Bristol for maybe 10 years now, and I live part of the year in the Adirondacks. I'm a grandmother to 2 boys who go to Bristol. And I've been working with Elisa and Jen on anti-racism and hope to move our schools into an active part in that aspect. And I think it's great that we're trying to get the community involved. So
thank you. Erin, do you mind going next?
Sure. Sorry about the piano. My kids are having a lesson, but my name's Erin Rubel. I live in New Haven, and I have a daughter in 7th grade and a son in 9th grade at Mount Abe.
I don't think I knew you had a 7th grader, Erin. I have a 7th grader too.
Yeah.
My son Sam is on team 1. So.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah. My daughter's on team 1, so they're
probably okay. Maybe they cross paths. All right, and Liz.
Liz Sarah from Bristol, and yeah, I have a son who's a junior, and I have an upcoming kindergartner, so that's exciting.
Thank you. And Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Forrest, and Elisa is my mom, and I work together with she and Deb. We have a group where we're, as Deb said, working on anti-racism issues and working on that in ourselves, and which brought us to looking at Bristol schools and some incidents that happened around racism, and led us to this group. So I'm excited to be part of, going forward with that. I graduated from Mount Abe High School years ago. So I hope to bring some support and lens to this work. I'll pass.
Thank you. And Bailey, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I can't start my camera or I'll get kicked off because my internet isn't strong, but I'm going to work on that for next time. I'm Bailey Lane Gordon. I have lived in Moncton my entire life. I have 5 kids in the school system. I will have a kindergartner next year, all the way up to a junior right now. So we are heavily involved in lots and lots of stuff. Also, in my professional world, I am a school-based occupational therapist in another district. So I am a really strong advocate for kids with learning disabilities and learning differences. I'm excited to be part of this group.
Thank you. And when Kristen is able to join us, Kristen Toy is a school board member as well. I might pause and ask her to just introduce herself. And just a reminder to everyone, so my name is Krista Siringo. I'm the chair of this committee. And we are a committee of the school board. So we have board member representation, but we're a committee that includes community members, which is really nice and goes well with our theme of really working on how to engage our community around what's happening in our district. So we have a formal agenda, and it has public comment on there because that's kind of how our agendas usually are written up, but we invite participation throughout the meeting. That doesn't really hold up in the same way as it does as a traditional board meeting. So I'm going to share an update on the work we're doing around the Listen Up screening. And Liz, I hope that you can help fill in any gaps that I leave off. So a little background for Erin and Bailey, although Bailey's probably heard a little bit of this at our school board meeting. So we have been trying to think about how to initiate conversations in the school district that invite people to be part of thinking about what kids need to have the tools to succeed in our schools and in life, regardless of any pre-existing conditions, characteristics, determinations, race, sex, gender, economics, ability. And that's a clear part of our ends policy as a district, which are the outcomes we hope all kids will achieve. And so we've been thinking about how to kind of find a way to sort of initiate and invite people to participate in that conversation. And we learned about the Listen Up musical that was produced and directed by Bess O'Brien up in the Northeast Kingdom, and now is a film that you can screen in your community. And it incorporates the voices of many, many young adults that were captured over the course of, a year or so, sharing their stories about what's important to them and what they struggle with and what they kind of hope adults, what they want us to know about what's going on for them, what's important to them. So social media, racism, bullying, foster care, LGBTQ issues. It really runs the gamut of stories that these young folks are sharing. in a pretty poignant way, and it takes the shape of a musical. And so this group kind of talked about a lot of different ways and to start these conversations, and thought that this sort of screening might be a way to get people to come together around wanting to know what kids feel and need and how they're articulating that, and holding a space in our community to invite lots of people to come to this event, and then use it as a launching point to plan a series of things, conversations, dialogues, maybe recommendations with folks that want to dive more into what our school currently provides to ensure that all kids have what they need, and what we might think that we need to improve upon. So we decided, because the 5 Town Friends of the Arts has this grant application that they were soliciting applications for, we decided, well, maybe that's a good thing to pursue, just because it could be a cool partnership to have with them, because musicals and the arts are really rich in our community. And although the screening doesn't cost very much, it could just be a great way to generate a little bit of funding, and more than that, a great sort of opportunity to share more about the work we hope to do. So linked in our agenda is the grant application that we submitted, and I meant to find out, and I don't have that information right now, when we might hear, but we haven't heard yet. We just submitted it last Wednesday. But regardless of whether we get the funding, we're going to go through with the plan that's laid out in the grant application. And so I think that does a nice job of kind of describing what we hope to do. Because everyone, do you want me, I can put if folks want to look at it again as we're talking, I will put the link to the grant application right in the chat.
And Krista, are you thinking about having the conversation happen immediately after the screening, or in separate meetings entirely?
Yeah, so I had spoken with Bess O'Brien, the director, when I said we were interested in doing a screening, and she said, well, I strongly recommend that the screening is an hour and a half, and I strongly recommend that you do a Q&A right after. Originally, we were talking about having showing the screening and then having some sort of like exit card or survey to say, hey, do you want to be part of a group of folks who get together to plan out more events like this and or attend future conversations? And I think we still will do that. But in addition to that, at the event itself, we would have a Q&A, and Bess would be there for that, and also some young people. So it's kind of a both and.
My instinct would be that you could get some of the best conversations immediately after, because it'll spark and not maybe even open it up so it's not just a Q&A, but it's sort of a community forum where people can then just talk about their experiences, explore the topic a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's like a really rich springboard for that.
Yep.
It's hard to do kind of out of nowhere. And if especially if there have been all of these like voices sharing it, then I think it's easier for people to do that in turn.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, Erin. Sorry, I'm just looking and going back and forth between Zoom and the application. So so what Liz and I did, we met with the principal of Mount Abe to gauge their interest. This group is really focused on community connections and want to involve students as much as possible, student staff, but it's not our role to say this is something you have to do at school. So we wanted to meet with the principal at Mount Abe to say, hey, we would like to do this in the community, but in what ways do you think students might be involved? And so she suggested that we think about having, in addition to a community screening, an opportunity during the school day, perhaps, where students could sign up for an in-school field trip where they could attend a screening as well. And so we're working, or I've sort of left that for her to think about how that would get scheduled and marketed to students. But what we would like to do, and what her idea was, which I think is a great one, is to engage the community council at Mount Abe, which is a group of students from all grades, 7 through 12. There are a couple of kids in every class that are representatives to the community council. And they are supposed to be sort of ambassadors between the school administration and the student body, and bringing forth different ideas and initiatives. And so they'd be a great group to engage around both bringing people out for the community screening, but also trying to see if they can't get students to participate in a screening at school. So there is, in the first week of May, the Fine Arts Festival. So the other thing the principal suggested was that, actually, no, it's the second week of May. She suggested that maybe this could all happen in conjunction with the Fine Arts Festival, which was a great idea, because that, I don't know if folks are familiar with that event, but it's a week-long series of things that happen both at Mount Abe and in the elementary schools. And it usually culminates in this big, the gym is open and filled with amazing art exhibits from all of the elementary schools and the middle and high school. And a lot of times there are musical performances or artistic performances or some sort of art-based, where the community is invited to an event in the evening. So I think they have a couple of things already planned, but what would be really great and what we're hoping might happen is that we could do something that week during school for the students, and then also in the evening for the community. So community members could come in, they could check out all the amazing art in Mount Abe, and then hang around for the screening and the Q&A. So we're crossing fingers that we can make the dates align for the producer and for Mount Abe's calendar, but it seemed like that could be a really great way to get a lot of folks out. What we've talked about in this group is how can we kickstart these sorts of conversations in a way that invites as many different kinds of folks to be part of them as possible. And so, number one, a screening about young people seems like maybe a great option. And number two, doing it around something that is pretty beloved in our community and already happening seems like a great thing as well. So we're just kind of trying to get the logistical ducks in a row, and Bess O'Brien is available on May 8th. And so that's a Monday. The other days of the week of the Fine Arts Festival in the evenings, I think, are spoken for. Either they're spoken for by Mount Abe or by Bess. So we're kind of honing in on Monday, May 8th for an evening event. And then the thing that I don't know yet is whether or not we'll be able to, when an in-school field trip sort of screening would take place. And hopefully it would be, in an ideal world, it would be that same day, and we could have Bess be there all day and connecting with students, which is another thing she does do in addition to screenings and Q&A. She does, she offers ways to connect with kids in school around these topics. So it's pretty exciting. I don't know what I've missed, Liz, about what our plans are. I think you spoke to some community council members about it. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was great because a couple of students had already seen it, and they felt like this was a really great role, right? To be a bridge between the community and the school. And it just seemed exciting. And they were interested in, once we had a date, interested in helping, like Krista said, get the word out and advertise and how to do that, and possibly help with the exit survey. So I think it was a really positive response. They were just looking for those dates and times.
Yeah, I'm going to pause for a second. Kristen, hey, I'm going to put you on the spot. So Kristen Toy just joined us. Can you just say a quick hi and quick intro to our group?
Hey, sorry.
That's
I just
okay.
had a sneezing fit.
Oh,
Yes, so yes, it's over. It's over. It's good.
okay.
Yeah, so I'm new to the committee, also to new to the MAUSD board. I'm from Starksboro, have two kids that are both attending Mount Abe. I've got a freshman and a junior. So yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about everything that goes on with this committee and how I can assist.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So we don't have the date in stone yet, but if we kind of imagine and hope that it is May 8th, that gives us a month and a half. Is that right? About a month and a half to plan for and get the word out about the event. So one of the things I think through the school, having it at Mount Abe and having it through the Fine Arts Festival will help a lot with getting the word out. But one of the things I think I would love us to try to brainstorm is what other connections we all might have in the community of people that might also want to be part of the conversation that are not necessarily as dialed in to Mount Abe. So for instance, I was thinking of some of the things that Porter Knight has been doing in Bristol around coordinating conversations with town employees and elected officials around anti-racism and equity and diversity. And so she seemed like a good person to reach out to say, hey, this is happening and can you help spread the word? Because she's also been hosting a lot of different monthly conversations on a variety of topics. But I think it would be great if we could sort of do some brainstorming now, some groups that we think we might have some connection to in our community and that we'd be willing to get the word out once we have the who, what, when, where all dialed in.
Yeah, just sort of putting on my thinking cap. Yeah, of course I instinctively go directly to Mount Abe. But do we think that there would be any value in, putting something in Friday folders, just to kind of start getting the word out? I don't know if that's necessarily the audience that would be most receptive to it.
Can you tell folks what Friday Fold? I think I know what you mean, but
oh yeah, sorry.
Sure everybody does. That's okay.
Yeah, so I know at Robinson, they have what they call Friday folders, which is where any notices of any sort of, say like the Scholastic Book, fair, or the menu for school lunches, anything that is sort of an announcement, if you will. And it goes home with every student on Friday, along with anything relevant to what's going on, directly with the student. So perhaps that would be some place to start. And it's easy to gain access to it. It's and it's something that I believe all the schools do. But again, maybe just a starting point that wouldn't be specific to Mount Abe. But, I think it's the topic is relevant enough where it could pique some folks' interest.
Yep. You're reminding me, Kristen, that something Shannon said when Liz and I were meeting with her is that it could be great to specifically invite parents of sixth graders whose kids are going to be going to Mount Abe next year. So
Yes,
for
absolutely.
sure
And-
that group. And then, yeah, I bet there are a lot of other families who have kids of different ages and
sure.
or are just aware of what's coming.
Yeah,
As they
absolutely.
get
And
older.
and you know, and to that point, just thinking of like step up day for incoming sixth graders and incoming freshmen from the middle school, kind of in that same vein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is there are a couple private schools that do feed into Mount Abe, like Red
Mhm.
Cedar and North Branch, and we could contact them and see if some of their kids who are on the way in are interested.
Yep.
Good point. Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking about community members who may not have kids in school anymore, but still want to be in touch somehow. So I'm wondering if libraries or local churches might be a good avenue. I
Yeah.
also wonder about making sure that we are just letting parents know if it may not be appropriate for younger kids and not, I haven't seen enough information to know, maybe if it's like more of a PG-13 thing or,
Mhm.
whatever, or like, I can't imagine my 7-year-old's going to sit through something like that. So I wouldn't bring her, but
Yeah.
my older kids definitely.
Yeah.
And then another group of people who are kind of dialed into school might be like the mentors.
Mhm.
They might be able to get a good word out as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Bailey.
Elisa, go ahead. So I didn't see your hand there.
Oh, no, that's okay. I just didn't want to interrupt. So I just want to say that I watched the show and it is really wonderful. It was very, very impressive how well they addressed so many different issues in a short length of time, and they did it so well and from the heart. And this is a really great thing, I think, for our community to see. And I think it's really a good idea to get Porter involved. I haven't been privy to her spring schedule, but I know I think over the summer she doesn't do quite as many things. But if she doesn't already have something set for the month of May, this could be it.
Yep.
And through that, it's also through the library.
Yeah.
So anybody that would be on the library's mailing list would get that information directly in their email. I also really feel like especially since is it Friends of the Arts that has got that? I mean, they have a pretty far-reaching bunch of people too. So I would think that if they will, even if they don't want to do a grant, that they would be able to help put the word out to that part of the community. The other thing that I think is worth doing is, I'm certain, will we have posters up around?
Yeah,
it?
so one of the things that Bess O'Brien will provide along with us purchasing the screening is marketing materials that we can then make copies of. Yeah.
So posters, and then also connecting with the Addison County Chamber of Commerce. They've got quite a lot of people that they can reach out to. Also, I think the Addison Independent would do an article about this. And so reaching out to them and getting an interview and maybe even having them speak with Bess as part of the interview, maybe put some photos in of the original cast. And then there's always Front Porch Forum, which seems to reach a huge amount of people in the community.
Um, I don't know if I had a chance to tell this group, but the Addison Northwest folk, their school district had hoped to screen Listen Up, but they are putting that off right now. And when they heard that we were going to do the screening, they were excited about the idea of sharing that with their community as well and inviting them to attend. So I know when I was originally talking to Beth, she was cautioning me, and I think I maybe mentioned this at the last meeting, to not try to have this really big space that you can't fill. But I actually think we could probably get a pretty good crowd for this. And Mount Abe, the auditorium can be, sections can be split off so that it kind of funnels people toward the front and center. So anyway, so I think we were leaning toward having it in the auditorium. It seems like it deserves that space. And also, fingers crossed, the lobby renovation will be fully complete. So it's a great opportunity for people to come in, see all the renovations, including the auditorium space, which is really looking great right now. So
Krista, I just wanted to say I watched the musical too, and it was outstanding and very moving. And I agree with Aaron that we definitely need a question and answer right after, because that's when you're so affected by it.
Yeah.
And I also agree with Elisa about Porter. She's pretty organized, so I don't know if she has something for May or not, but if she does already have something, maybe even in the fall, if she already has something, then as just as a follow-up to people who couldn't come this time. I mean, it's not out of the question, if she can't do it now, to ask her if she's interested for later. Just an idea.
Yep.
Krista, one thing just to think about, and I mean, it's been my experience in the auditorium that it might be a great place to watch it, but it's not the greatest place to have a Q&A. I don't think. I mean, it's dark, kind of hard to, I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I was wondering if the cafeteria would have a little bit more of a community feel and less of a theatrical feel, and maybe easier for Q&A. That's just my thought.
Yeah, I think we'll probably have to figure out. There's probably some things we could do if we decide to go with the auditorium with lighting. Bringing up the house lights, putting down the house lights. I think the thing with the auditorium is that the sound system and projection is pretty well dialed in. Not necessarily the individual mics during musicals. So if you've seen some glitches with that, we're working on that. But
I remember when Porter used the cafeteria, though, that the audio was really good.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I feel like the Q&A, the part at the end is, like Deb said, really important, and it maybe would work better, in the cafeteria if people are at small tables and each table has a conversation and then there's Q&A. I don't know. There's something about having it be a little more intimate and talk in a smaller group rather than feel like they're too hard for them to stand up in the huge auditorium and ask a question or make a comment. Might not be quite as successful in developing the kind of conversations we want to have with the community going forward.
Yeah.
I think it's just something to think about.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I do wonder too about the if we're trying to break up into small groups, if it wouldn't make sense to maybe go across the hall to some of the classrooms connected to the library, or like literally move to a different spot, and maybe there's a few refreshments in those areas. I know, I mean, this was pre-COVID when we were meeting about the merger and different ideas. It was actually kind of hard to hear with that many people in small groups in the cafeteria, but I definitely agree. Like it's hard in the auditorium when your seats can't turn to like look at somebody else without kind of being in a row. So I wonder if there's like a happy medium. And again, we don't really know how many people are going to show up. If we have tons of people, it might be a little trickier, but.
The one thing about smaller groups, I'm just sort of brainstorming from my own experience. Like I totally hear you on the like intimidation factor. I think that you can have really great conversations in those. Sometimes when you join them as a community member, though, it feels like that conversation isn't going anywhere because only the people at your table hear it. And then you sort of like wonder what everybody else is saying. And also like we wonder if that information is then being shared. And like the nice thing about a big group is that everybody hears it. So I don't know.
I would just offer that I think it might be a both and. What I'm wondering is the screening and Q&A, as far as what I think BEST typically does, is more passive. It's more you're sitting, you're watching, and then I don't know. Well, the Q&A obviously isn't passive, but I don't know that it I think she has young people up there, and I think it's more of like a traditional Q&A, maybe about the process or maybe about some of the specific topics. But we also want to then have more rich conversations and dialogues. And so I think they are maybe two different things. And hopefully the screening will then lead to, you know, what I'm imagining is some folks that are like, we really need to talk more about this with community members. This is really important. And how can we structure more meaningful conversations about this where people can really chew on it? And if we do that, it would probably take more of a small group feel. And a really important part of that, doing that well, Erin, to your point, is that there's note taking and that those notes are captured and that themes are gleaned from that, and people all can see and hear what every group says, what the themes are that resonated across the group. So I think that's an important part of the design, but it looks a little different depending on the purpose of the event. Right now, at least, I think this event is designed to be a kind of pay attention, folks, there's stuff happening, and we really want you to be involved. And we don't want to lose momentum at the event, but I'm not sure we can really dig that deeply in that particular space. Jennifer?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking this in the same line that you just brought up, Krista, that I think it could be good to break off. What I would worry about is losing people, you know, as the thing is over, and then trying to transition people to another space for something like this might be too big of an ask. Like people are busy and they may exit and not get any of the discussion part. I think that would be my fear of a little bit around that. And maybe asking Bess would be, you know, she's got experience doing this. Like what would be the best, what does she think the best would be? But I like the idea of what I would, I guess, really like to see in that space afterwards is having a place for people to sign up for the next whatever it is. Like we have maybe something in the works, or at least getting people for an email list, you know, sign up. You're interested in knowing what the next thing's going to be, even if we don't quite have that figured out, getting their contact information somehow, you know, getting people to get it, to sort of buy into the next thing. And then one idea for getting people involved, because there's such great, Main Street small business and other small businesses in the area. And people could help me. There should be some sort of small business group or something like that. Maybe it's the chamber, maybe something else. Maybe Mom would have some ideas about that. Because you did the small business in town, or there's like a Bristol, I know, like Facebook group that sort of puts up different things about Bristol happening in Bristol. Maybe that would be a place to go to see if they would put up a little something about it. Yeah, and I'm not sure. I can't remember what the name of the group is. I'm part of it.
Bristol Core. You think about Bristol Core?
Yeah, something like that. So I think that would be really good. And I also want to say that I watched the film and I purchased it. It's amazing. I mean, I was blown away. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for bringing that to awareness.
Yeah.
It's like so touched. I was crying. I was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is powerful, and there are some language things that certainly some parents might want to know about, but but the whole overall message is just incredible. Like, take it to Broadway.
Yeah.
Seriously, like, it's really good.
Yeah.
Really well.
Yeah.
Written. So, thanks.
I'm wondering, because it is so powerful and because it touches on so many topics, one of the things that this group talked about a lot is the desire to incorporate specifically anti-racist work into these conversations. And I think, we probably recognize that folks come at that or are willing to talk about that or not talk about that in different ways. And because this musical touches on many topics and is about kids talking about what they need, and it seems like it could be accessible to lots of folks, are there ways to connect with people who might not otherwise show up for an anti-racism workshop that we can think of and brainstorm? Because I think that's the hope, right? Is to get us all together, despite our differences, to make this community the best place it can be for everybody. And so thinking about how to connect with groups of folks, and Bailey, you mentioned church groups and libraries, and I think those are two spaces that lots of different kinds of people go to. So I think that's great. Are there other, like I was thinking, select board members maybe, but what else is there? What other ways are there?
I was thinking of, and I don't know if this makes any sense at all, but a lot of the basis for the film centered around teens struggling with emotional issues. So I guess what I'm saying is I wonder about doctors' offices. If you could put up posters there and or any kind of facility.
What was that, Bill?
CSAC would be a really important contributor to some of this too. I think one of the things that stops me from going to things in the evening is childcare.
Yep.
I can only leave my kids alone so late and so long. So that might be a consideration, as well as if we can get some groups of teens that maybe have already seen the movie or something that could do games or something with kids in different rooms.
I love that you brought that up, Bailey.
It would definitely have to be pretty structured, but maybe ELP could help us with something like that. And I'm sure there'd have to be some sort of reimbursement or funding for the people who are helping with that. But it definitely is a barrier, probably 50% of the time for me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. Childcare, and the other thing I was thinking about was food. depending on when we have it, it may be less of an issue, but I know when we were doing community conversations in each of the towns around our kind of facilities planning work, we offered childcare, and it was, at least when we did it in Bristol, people took us up on it and it was great. And I just brought a big bag of games, and we had a couple of teenagers, and we had snacks for the kids. And yeah, I think that those are the sorts of things that make engaging with the community inclusive. So thinking about what are the barriers people have to participating. Kristen?
Yeah, just in that same vein about childcare, I know that in Starksboro, because we have town meeting on Saturday, we offer childcare, and it's by donation. So for example, you have a handful of kids, and the kids that are taking care of the kids, they make a few bucks, and everybody wins. And yeah, and I mean, it could even be something as simple as, I could bake a batch of brownies. That's that's not a problem, and it doesn't have to be super complicated. I think just keeping it simple and to the point of keeping it like that really does add to that community feel, where there's the youngers that are meeting the olders, and I think that brings a lot of value to our towns. Just meeting people kind of by default, if you will. I think that's kind of a special connection.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just craning to look at the time. What other ideas do people have about getting groups of folks involved, or ways to make it as low barrier in participation of an event as possible? What about seniors? Do you think older folks who are less connected with our schools might be interested in coming to something like this? And if so, what would entice them to come? Is your hand still up from before, Kristen, or do you have another idea?
No, it's just another thought.
Yeah, go for it.
Even groups like Bone Builders, I don't know if that would be something. It's such a small group here, but I mean, I think that again, just if we can put flyers up again, like Bailey had suggested, at the churches and libraries, I think that could be helpful, because to your point, they may not necessarily be directly connected with our schools, but they're still part of the community, and they may find, some value in it. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about putting some posters at BFit? That has a wide range of people there.
Yep.
Is there a way to also, I'm kind of in my brain going back to the idea, Kristen, that you talked about, that trying to get a wide variety of thoughts and opinions, and
yep.
maybe there's a few people who don't necessarily want to focus on certain topics, but this film touches on lots of things. So I wonder if there's some way to do some social media previewing, like a little trailer that we could put out. Because I think the wording is everything on a poster. And if you don't know what the topics that are covered in the film are, then I don't know that you might not realize how powerful it is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm sure there's other groups on Facebook, other than like Friends of Robinson. There's probably Friends of, Bristol Elementary, and so on and so forth. And, that's a really good point, Bailey, and giving some context leading up to it. That might, and those groups, speaking for Starksboro, I know that those groups, it's not necessarily just limited to parents of students at Robinson, but it's also members of the community. So, I think that's a good point to put something like that out there. If there's, a trailer, if you will.
Could go on Front Porch Forum too. I think that's a great
Yep.
idea.
There
I
is
would
a trailer. There is a trailer on the website.
Yep.
And this may be, I'm just thinking of that one barrier for people to come might be transportation.
Mhm.
I don't know if maybe a bridge too far, but could you run the school buses and pick up adults and seniors?
I think what we did, what we have done before was we've offered transportation and encouraged people to reach out if they needed it. And then we've kind of
Mhm.
figured out, because I think when we did this last time, we didn't have anyone take us up on it. So we
Oh.
probably would have a hard time dedicating a specific set of vehicles, but we would have an easier time getting rides for people that need it. So I think we encourage people to reach out if that was a barrier.
Yeah, that was it. And then so that we just kind of gave a contact information, like, contact us directly and we'd be happy to, right?
Yep.
Swing by and pick someone up. And I think with the students, we had a tricky thing, right? We would just redo what we did, right? Because we did gift cards because it was technically not really like, it was kind of tricky, right? So there was like a gift card deal that I think, but I'm remembering that we can do this. It was done successfully before. So it can happen. So I feel good about that.
I also noticed that there in the film, there's a number of kids who talk about substance abuse challenges with families. I don't know what a group would be, but if there's any groups that are dedicated to support around that topic in the area, or maybe parent-child center.
Turning Point also.
Turning Point, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good, thank you for naming that. Forgot about that.
Yeah. And that's a very real and continuing to grow issue that we're seeing, in our schools. So,
Yeah, I would love if and I think we could brainstorm this too with community council, right? About what to advertise about it.
Yeah.
Because they'll know what would get kids. And in terms of our community that maybe doesn't have kids in school, I find that health is a really big one, right? And then you
health,
can kind of,
did you say health?
yeah, health. So I
Mhm.
like
Yep.
whoever mentioned the emotional piece, the emotional health.
Yeah.
And being frank about a list of some of the topics, right? I
Yeah.
mean, because there are going to be, I do think that substance abuse and things like that would actually draw, I mean, that's I don't feel like there's two sides of that. Like, I don't feel like there's two opposing, like perspectives, right? Like it's kind of everybody's in the same boat there.
Yeah.
Wanting to just solve the problem. So I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. And I almost feel like even the trailer for the video doesn't even get it all in there. So I don't know. And maybe we're kind of specific. Maybe the one that goes, the email that goes out to Turning Point is, they all share the same information about the event in terms of the details and all of that. But maybe when we write an email to them, it also kind of mentions that it touches on that issue. And the one that goes to Bone Builders, that goes to CSAC, right? Like we have a general email asking if they would be interested in putting up a poster that's attached, and then kind of describing the connection to them.
Yeah. I think that's a good
And I
idea,
think we
Liz.
all recognize the social emotional issues that our communities are in right now. Like that's widely recognized. And I like this movie because it gives a little substance as to why, right? And it's not all just the pandemic, right? Like, because so much came from that, right? But this is all the things that existed before that that maybe just got exasperated by the pandemic. So it's kind of neat that it is pulling out a little bit of the lies. We're seeing some of the, so I don't know. But I'd be happy to, I don't know if we want to split up some of this work, like we get the materials, the posters sent around to the whole group, and then we each kind of like commit to 3 different places that we're going to reach out to or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm taking notes, and that was a great segue, because I'm going to put them all up into a document and then ask folks to help, because this is really where the work comes in, is trying to reach a broad array of folks. We need a big group of people doing that. So I figured I would write down all the places to reach out with, and then folks can pick places. And as far as what we'll need before we start reaching out to people is the date confirmed and the language we want to use about the event. And that's something that I'm hope to get confirmed soon, and can start like working on some language. And if there's anyone who's good at that and wants to help, I'd love to share a draft with somebody or get feedback.
I'm happy to do that with you.
Great. Thank you, Erin.
I had a few more just ideas popping in as we're talking along.
Yeah, go.
Well, there is a Vermont chapter of Showing Up for Racial Justice, which Facebook would be probably the mode, and I'm a member, so maybe I might even be able to post something there.
Oh, is that Joanna Caldwell's group?
Yeah.
In Middlebury?
So, and then there's Vermont Racial Justice Alliance, that's more Burlington based, I believe. I've seen some of their stuff, and then Vermont Digger also, maybe another place that would do a little article or
Yeah.
The Vermont chapter of the NAACP has a lot of members locally.
Okay.
This one is a little bit maybe out of the box, but maybe in a good way. I'm a 4-H leader, and I could ask our county agent if we're allowed to kind of share that information with other 4-H groups.
That would be awesome. Both of my kids did 4-H for a while with their horseback riding. And what I loved a lot of things about it, but one was that we really connected with a lot of folks that weren't in our typical bubble. And so I think that's a great suggestion, Bailey. I don't want to cut off our brainstorming, but I also want to say that since we're not going to be doing the ownership linkage plan, we don't necessarily need to take 2 hours tonight. But what I'm thinking, unless other ideas are emerging for people, is that I can create and share a document that's editable by everybody, so people can continue to add outreach ideas. We have another meeting on April 11th. And the good news is that's 3.5 weeks before the event. Yeah, we're going to need to get the word out probably sooner than that. We may need to do some stuff by email and then focus our April 11th meeting on thinking about the then what, like fine tuning about the event itself, but also like we were talking about earlier, how do we get people to want to continue to engage around this? And so if folks want to be thinking about that before we meet again, some sort of exit card or way for people to maybe share a few thoughts that came to mind. And this is separate from the Q&A, but sharing some thoughts that came to mind and then their contact info so that we can build from there what we want to do next.
Maybe I don't want to, I don't want to volunteer you, Deb and Mom. That could be something that, because we meet weekly, maybe we could think of some ideas for an exit thing.
And bring that to
inviting
us.
you in with me to work on that a bit.
That would be great.
That would be great. And that also maybe coming up with a way to, get people to sign up for something like I had suggested, that art
Yeah.
feels like good use of our skills. How do you guys feel? I know I'm roping you in. Okay, they're thumbs up. Okay, good. So
Thank
next
you.
time we can work on that.
That would be great. Yeah. And then if you could bring that to the meeting. The other thing that we have the ability to use, and this tool was purchased by the district, but it's really expensive and it's going away. So we're not going to renew it after the end of May. But we have this surveying tool called the Thought Exchange, which some of you may be familiar with from previous things we've done. But we can use it before the event. We can also use it after the event. It's a way to what you do with the Thought Exchange is you pose a fairly open-ended question that people can then share their thoughts and reactions to. And as people share thoughts, as additional people go on, they can share their own thoughts and see what others have shared. And so it could be that we weave something like that into an exit interview or a immediate follow-up. It could also be something we might consider doing, like a pre-event kind of, how do you think kids are doing in the district, and a post-event, or I don't know exactly. I'm kind of just spitballing right now because I just thought about the Thought Exchange as we were talking just now. But maybe what I'll do is try to share a little more information about it when we meet next time, or over email, so we can be thinking about how that could be part of this process. What's great about it and why it'd be great to use it before it goes away is that it's a survey tool, but it also gives people immediate feedback on what others are thinking, and it helps to theme all the information, which it takes a lot of work and time. And so if we can, we might as well use it. Jennifer.
Well, I just, when you're saying that, because in the show itself, they do that. They with students, they have collaborated all this information that people shared. I just wonder if it could be a tool to bring to some students or some of the student groups and let them answer, and like if it were to be something to be revealed at the event itself. Is that what you're saying? Like,
I mean, it could be either or both. Yeah.
Because anonymously, right?
Mhm.
People could, we would tell, you could make it clear that kids don't want to put personal stuff too personal, so that people maybe know who they are,
Right.
but to allow them to have the voice sort of in that, instead of what the adults are thinking, the kids, and what do kids need, give some opportunities for each of the schools to have some group input, or I don't know, it's just,
Yeah.
it'd be really cool.
Yeah, that could be really interesting. And I think we need to just talk with the principal about helping that get out. But the great thing about Thought Exchange is, number one, it's anonymous. Number two, there's some built-in moderation. And so it will pull out inappropriate or offensive or identifying things. And so it alleviates a lot of that worry. And then there's a lot of cross-checking to make sure, to double check that none of that goes out. But it could be really cool and powerful to somehow, as part of the screening, hear people seeing what kids around the state say, and then to reflect back, which what I'm assuming a lot of kids at Mount Abe would say fairly similar things. So that could be really powerful.
I think it could be great. Just a word of warning, they have had some trouble at Mount Abe with thought exchanges with kids putting in inappropriate stuff that can make it through. So I do think there would need to be a little bit of moderation because kids, it can be a little bit hurtful, especially if you're talking about something that emotions run high. I think there would
Mhm.
need to be some kind of supervision because kids think things are funny when they aren't sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know if you're talking about, there was an assembly, an in-school assembly. Yeah. I don't think that was a thought exchange, that the thought exchange tool was used.
Well, my son described it as one, but I may have misunderstood him.
Yeah, I don't know, but your point is well taken, that moderation is really important. And so there is like an AI moderation, and then there's requires approval, manual approval of anything that is anywhere near concerning. So I think that is really important because it can be very hurtful.
And maybe just somebody to look at. I mean, because there are ways, they're inappropriate messages that are not going to trigger any flags. They're just inappropriate because of their content, not
Right.
because,
Right.
it's a jerky thing to say. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a really, really good point. I'm thinking too, like maybe for this particular event, we would, we wouldn't just like share everything that got submitted, but maybe we manually go through and pull out, 5 to 10 really great ones and say, here's some of the things that our schools are saying, our kids' school, so that it's super clear and powerful.
Yeah.
Attention.
Yeah, there are ways you can run reports and do things like word bubbles and stuff that keep it pretty high level, but hit the broad themes. Yeah, we need to definitely be mindful of that. What else is on folks' mind about this event or some of the things we've talked about before we wrap up?
I just wonder about ways for maybe people to have, well, I guess, so two things. One, I want to make sure that if this show maybe just brings up some really hard feelings for kids or adults, that there's some way for them to connect with someone that could support them. And I also wonder about, and maybe this can be the same thing. I know there's going to be people who have thoughts that may not be popular and that they might want to share them, but may not want to share them out loud or where people can necessarily see it. So I'm wondering if there's also just a more private question, thought, just a way for them to share, even if maybe we can't get back to them, but they know that we heard them. Because I do know that happens sometimes. You're in a group of like 40 people. You're not going to say something that might ruffle feathers.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking along that line too, because a lot of these issues bring up a lot of vulnerable thoughts and feelings. And so I think it's important to have a way to be anonymous and yet say something, not in front of the whole group.
I agree. And, I'm just thinking of, some people are just timid by nature. And I think that's a really good point, in that, people just may not feel comfortable speaking their mind for fear of, just their own anxiety. But I think all points are valid and need to be heard.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lisa.
So I don't quite know how I want to say what I want to say. Give me just a second to figure it out. So it was very clear to me when I watched the film it's the whole beginning of the film starts out with the students saying, we're about to tell you some things that are going to make you uncomfortable. I mean, they're very careful to articulate that to the audience. And, but they also then articulate the importance of being uncomfortable with it, the importance of letting the material be edgy, and that they're not pointing any fingers or blaming anyone, but it is the way it is, and you as adults need to hear it. And so my bristles go up a little bit when I think we're trying to make too many people comfortable in hearing this material. This is a very white way to try to protect ourselves from the realities, especially of racism. And I kind of don't want everybody in the audience to be comfortable with this. I think being uncomfortable is part of the deal. And I think in the time that we have for the Q&A, we're not going to make everybody comfortable before they go home if they're really uncomfortable. But that's kind of the point of the whole thing, I think, is this is a film that's definitely not directed at other students. It's definitely directed at adults, at parents, at staff, at teachers. And the point of the film is that there's going to have to be some discomfort in order to solve this problem. So I think it's going to run a course that's intended, and we don't have to counsel everybody that comes to see it and make them feel good about it. And if they go home uncomfortable, I kind of think that's a good thing. So I just felt like somebody had to say that.
I agree with you, Elisa. I don't have the message of the movie is powerful and it needs to be heard. But I also want people to be able to contribute their reactions and what they think they can do for the community. And that's where my remark came from. I don't care if they feel uncomfortable about the film. I felt uncomfortable and bad. And it's yeah. But I do want people to feel comfortable to put their input in. And I would be one that might feel uncomfortable in a crowd of people that I didn't know speaking up. But I would appreciate a way that I could contribute. So that's where the comfort part for me would lay in is this is what I would like for the kids, and this is what I would like for the school system. But I totally agree that feeling uncomfortable, the kids were screaming for help and acceptance and acknowledgement, and that needs to be heard loud and clear. There's no question about that. And you can't pick up a paper today without reading about mental health issues with teens, no matter what the source is. But I just want everybody to be able to contribute somehow. I guess that's where I was coming from.
The other thing is, I would love to see a discussion after this relating it to local experiences, kids' experiences here. And I haven't seen it yet, but it sounds like there are some really private stories that could be shared in that regard, if it's dealing with mental health or substance abuse, or sometimes it can be hard to speak up about experiences you've had of racism too. And so like the kids who are sharing might also need some kind of safety or anonymity in order to feel comfortable expressing what they've felt.
Yeah, I was thinking that one thing is that Chris said that was a great idea with the exit cards, that people, that's a place I think that people will be able to write things down. And that's sort of how I took it, that people that don't want to speak up in the bigger forum. And I think if we're going to give resources for support, would maybe be more for the showing for the students directly, that maybe, and that maybe just as like reminding them that the, you know, guidance counselors or the people in the school who are available for psychological, emotional support, that those be, you know, just reminded for folks. If we're giving anything to take away, I don't know if we're giving them something like that to take away with the kids. That might be good. I think it is important. It is an edgy thing, and it's a little bit of a fine line, but I don't know that we should become the proponents either of this is where you need to go to take care of yourself as adults. I think that's different for the students that may be important to include some resources there. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what those would be, but I would maybe start with the school resources that are available and, you know, main things like that. Yeah, because then we could get into like giving out resources to students that parents might not want given out, and that could be tricky. You know, like
Yeah, I think that
yeah.
I look forward to continuing to connect with the Mount Abe administration to figure out who are the partners there that really should be looped in, that even for the community piece, that it's so strongly connected to the kid piece. And so, yeah, how can we be aligned with, and what do they want to be shared as far as support that exists and all of that. So, yeah.
I also think that, you know, if we're showing an edgy film about social emotional challenges and mental health challenges, that I want to make sure that I don't want to assume that adults do know where to get help, because, you know, my husband is in the Guard and we lose friends frequently due to self-inflicted end of life situations, and they knew where to get help supposedly, but they didn't. So I know it's not our responsibility to take care of everybody's mental health, but I think it would behoove us to at least maybe put a list of contacts on the back of a flyer that's handed out like a program or something that someone can choose to look at or not, and to act on or not. Especially as I think I have not watched this film, but I can imagine watching something like this and then really thinking about it for a long time, and things might be coming up later for me, not maybe that night, or things might change in my mind. So I really want to make sure that we are just thinking about all those pieces. And I'm perfectly comfortable. I mean, I think it is good that we are uncomfortable, right? With these things, where this isn't like a pat ourselves on the back, feel good kind of situation. It's a real discussion that needs to be had. So I'm excited about it, but I just want to be mindful of where everybody's coming from too.
So sorry, I hope I'm not talking too much, but I just thought maybe Bess also would be like, what has she done before? I'm sure this has come up. What resources would she recommend?
I also just want to say that the topics may be edgy, but I think it's not. I don't feel like it's the kind of edgy where it's going to send somebody over the brink on any topic. It's not like that. It's also full of love and laughter and camaraderie and I was more uplifted than anything else. So I don't feel like it's like, this is not a tragic kind of film. It's like kids saying to parents in a movie what they might not quite want to articulate to them in day-to-day life. Like, I'm sexually active. I'm, I smoke pot, I beer, all that kind of stuff. It's more challenging adults to listen to reality. But I never in a million years would say it's something that would cause somebody to go home and have a breakdown of any kind. I didn't get that feeling at all.
Me neither. I thought it was pretty uplifting. I would think it might move some kids more than parents. It's not that and not kids in a tragic way, but kids in a challenging way, maybe I should stick up and for myself and say some things that I have been reluctant to say and might need some support in doing that kind of thing. But as for parents, it's more of, oh, okay. It's not, I didn't think, but
I think a good compromise there might be to list for, like Bailey said, like if we do have a program or something, just to list a couple of places, because that's part of the individual experience as well. Because I know that sometimes it can bring up stuff like from our own memories of when we were younger, or it can bring up some strong feelings that we have for kiddos in our life that maybe are experiencing some of the things that they're going through. And that's where it got me, is I just really deeply felt for some of the kids. So, so yeah, I think just having a little list like CSAC, whatever, just like, a couple things would be great. Just because why not, I guess, right? That could be easy.
good point.
Krista, I just wanted to make the offer. I'm not sure if there's anything in particular that you need help with between now and the 11th, but if you need something specifically and if I can go do it, I'll be happy to do it for you. So just reach out.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I usually need a day or so to kind of get my head around the conversation and take my notes, and then I will very comfortably delegate some things. And Kim Callahan is not here, but she's also a great thought partner, especially around marketing and communication. Nancy Cornell is not here, and I'm sure she'd be happy to help as well. So yeah, I'm grateful for the group here and those other folks to move this along. And I'm also really grateful that it sounds like we've landed on something that will start to move a conversation forward that really needs to happen. So, yeah. So thank you, everybody. Is there anything else that folks want to say before we close out?
Just thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing this film. It's amazing.
I have to give kudos to Addison Northwest because it was on their plan and I was like, okay. So we'll definitely have to invite them because it was their idea first. All right. Well, great. Thanks, everybody. And you'll be hearing from me for sure before the 11th and hopefully very soon with a confirmation of our date. So we can start just at least getting people informally in our own network, get it on their radar. And I'll type all of this up into a spreadsheet and we can have at it.